Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating dive into the psychology and honestly, the underlying structure of effective persuasion. We're going to be looking directly at some foundational texts of competitive debating, ranging from the Cambridge Union to Oxford schools, to uncover the mechanics of how human beings actually convince one another.
Right off the bat, I want to pose a question directly to you. What makes an argument actually persuasive? Because, so often in our culture, we operate under this illusion that a debate is just a combative shouting match. We kind of think it's a battle of who can speak the loudest or who can interrupt the most. But the reality, as we'll see in the source material today, is that true persuasion is deeply systematic. It's profoundly empathetic, and it is strictly governed by rules.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, an active communicative act. To really understand persuasion, we first have to fundamentally reframe how we view the act of speaking itself. It is not a one-way street, right? It's a living, breathing connection between human beings. As our definition here points out, public speaking is an active communicative act. The texts make it incredibly clear. You absolutely cannot just read a transcript of words from a page. To be an effective speaker, you have to master active communication. You have to constantly be asking yourself one defining question: who is my audience? If you aren't tailoring your delivery to the actual listeners in front of you, well, you just aren't persuading. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact point. Looking at the Cambridge Debating Guide, the very first header they focus on is style. As the text notes, style is a crucial factor in persuasion. Think about it. The most effective leaders in any organization, they are brilliant communicators. The guide emphasizes that while, sure, no two people have the exact same natural speaking style, understanding the elements of style allows you to target your own weaknesses and drastically improve how your message is actually received.
So, what are the specific physical and vocal techniques derived from this material? Well, here are the mechanics of engagement that keep an audience from just drifting off. First up, varying your volume and tone. As the guide notes, a consistently loud volume makes it literally impossible to emphasize a crucial point. It just all blends together. Second, maintaining eye contact. Looking at the middle, right between the eyes of your audience members, really helps grab their attention. Third, keeping a reasonable, steady pace. You need to allow a brief pause after giving a vital statistic so the audience can actually digest it. And finally, avoiding what the guide calls automatic mode. You know, that thing where a speaker just rambles through their material without actually being present in the room. We want to avoid that at all costs.
Which brings us to Section 2, the ethical speaker. Now that we know how to engage, we really need to talk about who is engaging. Because true persuasion isn't just about a smooth delivery, it carries a profound moral weight. As highlighted across the fundamental texts of public speaking, you must commit to ethical speaking. In organized high-level debate, like the British Parliamentary style we're analyzing, the foundation of every single argument you make has to be built on a strict ethical commitment. You simply cannot divorce what you say from the responsibility of how you say it. Let's move on to Section 3, the Code of Honor. This ethical commitment leads us right into the hard boundaries of debate. It's what I like to call the Code of Honor. The rules in these environments, they aren't meant to restrict thought. Rather, they're designed to create a sort of sacred, respectful ground for true persuasion to actually happen. Listen to this quote from the Manitoba British Parliamentary Rules very carefully. Never insult another debater's race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. The rule is absolute. Anything offensive will be heavily penalized. In a world where we so often see ad hominem attacks completely dominate the news cycle, the structured debate ecosystem strictly prohibits it. You are told to always err on the side of caution. So the crucial point here is the stark contrast between these two approaches. An ethical argument relies on deep analysis, foundational principles, and real-world case studies. A toxic argument, on the other hand, relies on personal attacks, insults, or offensive material. And the Code of Honor is strictly enforced specifically so that speakers are forced to do the really hard work of logical analysis, rather than just taking the lazy, toxic route of tearing down their opponent personally. Section 4, the ordinary, intelligent voter. But who actually decides if your ethical, well-styled argument wins? For beginners, this is a massive aha moment. Meet the ultimate judge and arbiter of the debate ecosystem. We define this persona as the ordinary, intelligent voter. According to the Oxford Schools Guide, a core motivating principle behind debating is that arguments ought to be convincing to a regular person, not just someone who debates constantly. This means you don't need to persuade a panel of PhDs. You just need to convince an informed, everyday citizen who reads the news.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the rules deliberately level the playing field. A judge might actually be a PhD economist in real life, but the rules dictate they must actively suppress that knowledge. It's kind of like pretending you don't know the twist ending to a movie. They have to adopt the persona of the ordinary intelligent voter, someone who reads the front page of the newspaper but definitely doesn't know exact niche economic formulas off the top of their head.
So what exactly does this ordinary intelligent voter know? Well, they know general facts, like the fact that Brexit happened or that the 2024 Olympics took place. They grasp basic concepts, like the fact that a scarcity of goods drives up prices or that Shakespeare was a playwright. But they wouldn't know the exact 2024 Olympic medal table or the complex macroeconomic theory behind that pricing. This brilliant constraint essentially forces the speaker to clearly explain the logical links in their arguments step by step, instead of just dropping obscure statistics that the average voter wouldn't inherently understand. Let's move to Section 5 and see how this all builds together. Holistic persuasiveness. When that ordinary intelligent voter is sitting in the chair watching these ethical speakers engage, how do they actually decide who wins? The mechanics come down to a holistic evaluation, which is typically broken down into 3 core areas: content, manner, and strategy. Content is what you say, your substantive arguments and your refutations. Manner is how you say it, your style, your appropriate use of humor, and your audience engagement. And strategy is all about how you play the game, fulfilling your specific team roles like a prime minister setting up the debate or whips summarizing it without introducing unfair new arguments. It really is a holistic metric of persuasiveness. And I want to reassure you with some judging realities taken straight from the manuals. There is no automatic one or first place for a single good argument, and there's no automatic 4 or last place for a single mistake. The adjudicators are looking at your entire body of work. Furthermore, the format allows judges to just exercise basic common sense. If a team presents a completely implausible argument, like claiming a basic lockdown measure will instantly spark a nationwide political revolution, the judge's ordinary intelligent voter persona will naturally discount it because, well, it lacks common sense. It's an incredibly nuanced, forgiving system that heavily rewards thorough, step-by-step logic. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Armed with the knowledge that you are speaking to an ordinary intelligent voter, that you must abide by a strict ethical code, and that your style is just as vital as your statistics, if you had to persuade that voter today, where would you start? I really encourage you to reflect on your own communication habits this week. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the fascinating foundations of persuasion, and as always, keep explaining the world around you.